I'm just sitting here watching the wheels go round, and I'll tell you why this week on Motoring 2006.
TSN's Motoring 2006 is brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.
The Dakota Apartments on Central Park West in Manhattan, a building with plenty of history, but without a doubt, it is best known for the location where John Lennon lost his life December 8th, 1980. And you know, it was John who once said, there are no problems, just solutions. Well, that could be the rallying call for one particular car company, and that company is Mitsubishi. After one failed attempt, the company is once again setting up shop in Canada. But all indications are this time it is here to stay. Volvo President Paul Cummings has come over to run the show, and also joining him from Volvo, the marketing guru Larry Feuders. Now, the car business is no different than any other retail business. The more you sell, the more successful you become. But is it that easy for Mitsubishi? We'll talk about that this week, and also check out the brand new Eclipse Spyder, a vehicle that Mitsubishi is hoping will give the company something it desperately needs, and that is credibility.
The challenge for any car company is to put down some roots. Obviously, the likes of our competition, they've been here longer, and with that comes some history. For Mitsubishi, we're relatively new in the marketplace. Having been here once, coming back a second time, we're here to stay. Every new product for every company is important. For Mitsubishi, as we really try to break through in the Canadian marketplace, it's extremely important. Spyder is a great looking car, great handling, and a price point that quite honestly rocks. We've been able to lower the price point by $3,200 for $31,998 for the GS model. It is a great offering for consumers in the Canadian marketplace.
The bottom line on it is selling cars, and the Spyder that we've seen today is perhaps something that's going to at least create some traffic. It may not be the product that Joe Public is going to go in and buy, but it certainly is going to get their attention. And I think that's an important thing for Mitsubishi at this point, is to have something that people are going to recognize and say, oh gosh, that's a Mitsubishi.
Building a brand is very difficult. It's easy for us to pick up, and if I want to build a brand, I can move to China, build a brand in a market like China, where everything is new and fresh and brands are popping up by the day. To move into a mature market like Canada and build a multi-million-dollar brand is difficult. But the reality is the brand Mitsubishi is known very well worldwide, not necessarily known in the Canadian marketplace.
It's a nice car to drive. Technology is a little outdated. The V6 engine is nice, but it's a bit heavy. Front end is not as precise as it could be if they had a more modern and lighter engine. But overall, the power is there. It's nice to drive. For once, they've produced a convertible that is very stiff. So it's altogether a nice package for the money.
Stunning. When they first unwrapped that car at the Toronto Auto Show, we just stood back and said, wow, it was a gorgeous looking car. And seeing it here in the flesh today hasn't changed that opinion at all. It's a good looking car. Got a lot of looks as we were driving through town with it, which is, I always sort of feel is a good barometer. If people stop and stare, that's a good sign. And they were. They thought this was a pretty cool looking car, and I agree with it.
This Spyder is a competent, sporty, open-top car that I think can help the brand in terms of establishing a bit of a halo. It's a nice, cruising, open-top car, and that's probably what most buyers in this segment want. Is it going to turn the business upside down? No, it's a few hundred units. This Mitsubishi in Canada needs to be in the 35 to 50,000 unit sales range, and it's on track to sell about 12,000 cars in 2006. So, this is one very, very small step forward.
Our challenge not only is to bring new and better products to the market, but to bring a new attitude to the Canadian market with a brand that really has a lot of potential, that we believe is really going to make its mark in the marketplace.
You've got 2% of the market. How will you gauge success?
Quite honestly, when I get to 3, let's have another conversation. We do appeal to, right now we have 2% of Canadians consider Mitsubishi. If we can double that to 4%, I think I've done my job, and I think we'll be celebrating at that point.
Even if this car did have a front bumper, a badge on it, and without this customized bodywork here, I'll bet you still wouldn't know what kind of car it is. More later on Kenzie's Corner.
You know, one of the perks of this job is being able to drive some of the finest cars the planet has to offer. I'm going to give you a sneak peek into the world of the Bentley Continental Flying Spur. Now this sedan, they bill it as the world's fastest production four-door automobile. It should be fun. Bentley has always been synonymous with racing and speed right the way back to the days of the Bentley boys. The marque's latest vehicle, while thoroughly modern, can trace its inspiration to the 1952 Bentley R-Type Continental and the 57 Continental Flying Spur, which is where the name comes from. This car is also very different from Bentleys of just a decade or so ago. Simply stated, it's modern and it's being touted as the fastest four-door production car in the world with a top speed of 312 kilometers an hour. And yes, it's more than capable of these silly speeds. Mind you, when you do this, the fuel economy gauge tells you that the Flying Spur is using 99 litres per 100 kilometres. You got it, a litre of fuel for every kilometre driven at full throttle. Even the average at 29.4 litres per 100 kilometres is not for the faint of heart. The reason this Flying Spur quite literally flies is right here. This 6-litre 12-cylinder engine produces 552 horsepower. Now that's enough pony power to warp a car that weighs about the same as your average house to 100 kilometers an hour in 5.2 seconds. It really is blindingly quick. Obviously, having that amount of power under the hood tells you it's fast. However, it's the 479 pound-feet of torque that's ready to go at 1600 RPM that makes the Spur so special. Right from the word go, the engine is primed and ready to run. However, where it truly excels is in the mid-range. In spite of having to motivate 5,500 pounds of leather-lined luxury, it zips from 80 to 120k in just 3.3 seconds. Part of the allure of the Bentley is the leather that you find inside this vehicle. It's everywhere. It's on the roof, it's on the seats, it's on the dash. It even wraps the kick pillars as you get in and out of the car. Indeed, there's so much leather in here, it takes 11 cows to kit this thing out. You also get the niceties demanded of a good four-door sedan. Your own personal climate control system, heated and cooled seats, but more importantly, the stretch out space you need to let the miles melt away as James whisks you home. Onward, my man. To ensure all of those stallions get to the pavement with a minimum of fuss, the Flying Spur uses a top-notch all-wheel drive system and a 6-speed automatic transmission that includes a manual mode. The result is a car that moves off the line with alarming speed, but without so much as a chirp from its massive 275/35 R20 tyres. You know, obviously being a Bentley, this thing comes loaded when you sit up front. Power everything, all the toys you could possibly want, and then some. But it's also a driver's car. Electronic stability control, anti-lock brakes, you name it, it's got it. Right the way up to paddle shifters mounted on the steering column. But therein lies the rub. If you're mid-corner and need to shift gear, you got to take your hand off the steering wheel. Now, given the excellence of engineering throughout the rest of this vehicle, well, that's not so clever. Those brakes are also up to the job of slowing 5,500 pounds of automobile. With 15.9-inch and 13.2-inch vented rotors front and back, they are the largest fitted to any production car. Hammer the pedal and the Spur's stopping distances come in at just 41 metres from 100k, which is nothing short of amazing. They're also fade-free, and the system has a decent pedal feel, which is a marked departure from Bentleys of yore. You know, Bentleys have always been expensive, but at one time they weren't all they were cracked up to be, and primarily because a lot of the engineering, well, I think some of it came off a Noah's Ark. This car, yes, it's still expensive, but its engineering is absolutely first class, and the finish, well, it's exquisite. In fact, I've had so much fun with this car, it's going to be truly painful giving up the keys.
The ideal thing is for you to buy 4 identical tires. That's the ideal thing. Of course, there's sometimes when you can't afford to, or for whatever reason, you're only going to buy 2 new tires. When you do, those 2 tires go on the rear axle. This is true for front wheel, rear wheel, or all-wheel drive. Every vehicle, if you're only going to buy 2 new tires, match the tires that are on your vehicle and put them on the back. Steering is nothing without stability. Without the rear stability, all the steering in the world is useless. In fact, it's counterproductive, because what you're going to do is if you have the ability to steer but no stability, you'll spin around. And certainly that's not something you want to do on the 401 in rush hour. This car has brand new tires in the front and half-worn tires in the rear. We have steering, we have plenty of steering, but we have no stability. And it just spun out. Not something you'd want to do on a public road. Not something I think our cameraman particularly enjoys doing either. Okay, we're now in the car with new tires on the rear and worn tires on the front. This is the combination that Michelin recommends if you're only going to buy 2 new tires. Of course, the ideal situation is to buy 4 new tires at one time. The new tires provide stability, so no matter what happens to the front, the car won't lose control. When the fronts lose grip, all I have to do is lift off the gas, wait for the traction to return, and gas it again. It's very easy to drive. Your natural reaction is the right reaction. It relates to snow tires too. If you're only going to buy 2 new snow tires, they should go on the rear axle.
But the Aero X is a design concept first, I would say, and it shows really how we see the future of Saab as it relates to the progressive design. You know, it could be the interior, how we lay out the cockpit interior-wise, as well as the exterior elements. So you got to look at it primarily as a design concept. We have added a lot of functionality into the vehicles with utility also in a sports car if you wish, and that's also a key element of our brand. Under the hood you have all-wheel drive, and of course you have a 100% ethanol driven vehicle, which fits very nicely with our alternative fuel and significant horsepower as well as torque. The purpose of the Aero X is of course to show the future of Saab, how we see Saab developing over time, and whereas we're not going to build this vehicle in serial production, you'll see many elements coming into our future product lineup.
Earlier we saw how Mitsubishi is hoping for big things for their new Eclipse Spyder, but let's face it, this company is hardly a household name in Canada. You certainly don't see many of their vehicles on the roads. But there's one man who's worked on anything with an engine, at least two wheels, and that's our man in the Quaker State garage, Bill Gardner. So let's ask Bill his thoughts on Mitsubishi and the vehicles they produce.
Well, Brad, if you remember the first generation of Dodge minivans, the optional four-cylinder engine back then, the 2.6 liter, was built by Mitsubishi. And then in later years of Dodge minivan, the optional small V6, the 3-liter V6, was also built by Mitsubishi. So we got a lot of experience working on their engines. And let's just say, I hope that their current engines are a lot better than those two, because they left a little bit to be desired, so to speak. Anyhow, this week we want to wrap up our long-term test on the 05 Dakota pickup truck. We've got 17,500 kilometers on it. It's been a great little truck, really enjoyed it. Got a lot of seat time with the high output 4.7 in this particular truck, and I found that versus the regular 4.7 engine, let's put it this way, you definitely don't need the high output. It's real nice, lots of power, sounds great, but the regular 4.7 is more than enough power for this truck. Couple of things I really noticed about this truck. One was perfect tire wear. I don't think I've seen an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicle that was easier or better on the tires than this one. Bang on their suspension, that's for sure. Another thing, very sure-footed in the wintertime with the all-wheel drive transfer case and great tires, nice long wheelbase. You couldn't get this thing loose in the winter on any surface, no matter how hard you tried. Very sure-footed vehicle. Couple of things on my wish list though. I'd really like some cargo tie downs on the box rail, but the Daimler Chrysler guys showed me that in their accessory book, they've got a real nice little accessory, a rail that goes on the top of the box rail, so it gains you back those tie downs that you're missing, the upper level tie downs on the box rail. And it's a nice accessory, and definitely the way to go is with manufacturer's accessories, because you get the quality, the fit, and the finish of an OE manufacturer. So always check that out if you're accessorizing your truck. One other thing I'd really like to see was maybe a little bit more instrumentation, a voltmeter, oil pressure gauge, and a little bit nicer instrument cluster would be nice. But other than that, real nice truck. And the thing that I'm happiest about, Brad, we're getting it back to Chrysler without a nick or a scratch on it. I used it for my move last summer, moving residences, packed everything through the tailgate, nothing over the side, not a nick on it. She's going back to Chrysler perfect. Till next week, I'm Bill Gardner for Motoring 2006.
To be honest, this is a great surprise for us today. Magentis first generation was a horrible car. It was bad driving. Every time we were putting that car into a comparo, it was losing a big gap behind the other competitors. This new generation of the Magentis, I think, shows how much Korean manufacturers can improve their quality, and it's a big evolution, it's a big step. I was thinking that if some American manufacturers we won't name were doing that kind of evolution between the generations, they wouldn't be worrying about their #1 position.
If I played a little word association game, if I threw the word Mitsubishi at you, well, the average Canadian would probably respond, what? If you know the name at all, it's probably from your TV or your VCR. Video game fans might know it from Need for Speed, where some of the cars have Mitsubishi labels on them. Rally fans might know them for the Evolution series, but as a mainstream car maker, doesn't have a lot of visibility. Now, Mitsubishi is in fact one of Japan's oldest and largest companies. They have interests in heavy construction, electronics, banking. They even made the Zero Fighter during World War II. But as a mainstream car maker, they've had a rough go of it. Various associations with Chrysler and Mercedes-Benz over the years mostly ended up in tears. The Canadian operation started a few years ago, but was pretty much run as the 51st state out of the United States. This is always a bad idea because guess what? Canada is a different country and we do have different requirements. Well, they're taking another shot at it now with a couple of guys come over from Volvo Canada to run Mitsubishi Canada. Now you might think, Why would they leave a successful, growing company like Volvo to take a shot at something like Mitsubishi? Well, I'm not saying people in the car business are competitive, but if these guys worked for Mother Teresa, they'd lie awake all night thinking, how can we beat UNICEF? These guys view it as a challenge. If they fail, everybody will say, well, they were going to fail anyway, but if they succeed, they end up looking like heroes. Now, they understand that to succeed, the bottom line is product. They also know they've got a challenge right there too. About the most interesting car they've got is the Eclipse Coupe and Convertible, but that's the front-wheel drive sports coupe market. It's very small and it's declining. Toyota just pulled out by dropping the Celica. They're not going to sell a lot of those no matter how good they are. The small Lancer, well, it was only competitive when it was new, and it's about 3 generations behind something like a Civic, Mazda 3, or even a Chevy Cobalt. The Galant is a nice enough mid-size sedan, but nothing there that's going to cause a Camry or a Accord owner to throw their car away. They got a bunch of SUVs as well, but you know me, they all look the same to me, and apparently they all look the same to the market as well. One thing Mitsubishi Canada has done, they got the best warranty in the business, 10 full years. The belt and suspender types are going to go for that. But is that going to be enough? Well, these 2 guys from Volvo, they're betting on that heavily. They've seen the product plan for the next 10 years, and they've decided to take the chance. Would I be buying Mitsubishi stock right now? I'm going to wait and see. I'm Jim Kenzie.
Well, Jim's not sure whether to buy or sell Mitsubishi stock, but after a brief time behind the new Eclipse Spyder, my guess is a lot of consumers will make a buy decision. The styling is terrific, it drives well, of course, price always an issue. But as Jim also said, this company is in desperate need of new product. Well, at the recent New York Auto Show, they showed a concept of the next generation Lancer, and if their production model looks anything like the concept, I think there are good times ahead. And beginning the program, as you know, we talked about John Lennon. Well, I'm a huge Beatle fan, so is my cameraman Pete McCallum. And when the name Yoko Ono comes up, well, don't get us started. But the best thing that woman ever did was purchase some land here in Central Park and dedicated strawberry fields to John Lennon, one of the world's greatest songwriters. Well, that's it for now. We'll see you next time out as we continue to bring you more stories about cars and the people who drive them.
They were saying that vanilla is one of the things that describes the car, but vanilla is still, you know, the best-selling ice cream too. So, you know, they want to position the car to be the best-selling sedan in Canada. So they've got a shot, I think, if they can get that new audience in to look at it.
TSN's Motoring 2006 has been brought to you by the new Q from Quaker State. Unleash all your horses. And Michelin, a better way forward.